Everybody. I know I'm late. I had ice cream. I was debating between starting the stream or finishing up, and I decided to finish up because I am really, really, really tired. But I don't want that to get in the way of streaming, and I will do my best to do a full stream tonight. I think I've lost my streaming window. Just a second. But yeah, a good day at work today. There's a lot going on. I'm busy, but busy is not necessarily bad. But it's definitely making it hard to, especially Fridays, definitely making it hard to start at 7. But we are back to Cyberpunk. For those of you that were wondering where I was on Friday, so I'm hoping that the word got out on this, but basically I was invited to do a paid broadcast on the Cultist Simulator Steam page. In fact, today, June the 28th, is the day that the introduction to the game sort of talks, that's the date on which the aspirant starts. So I also think it might be somebody's birthday, so I probably owe them a happy birthday, although I suspect probably with the time difference, it's a bit late for that. So anyways, I, excuse me. Yeah, I'm going to do my best to work with the time that I have. And it's been obviously 2 weeks since I played Cyberpunk, but not necessarily this time because I wasn't streaming. It was just because I was streaming somewhere else and something else. So let's bring up the game and we should be good to start. Apparently there's piano sheet music for Cyberpunk. I'm curious about that. Okay, so I don't see video on the screen. Well, I see it. I just don't see it on stream. There we go. Okay. So I'm trying to remember. I think I was about to start a mission.
Welcomes you to NCX, Night City International and Translunar.
In fact,
Leave your earthly worries, ulcers, and tumors behind and take off for the stars.
I think it might have been a Mr. Hands mission now that I think of it. Yeah, meet with Mr. Hands. Hands is one megalomaniacal buffoon, and that's coming from me. Let's hope at least those fucking slippers fit your feet like a glove. Suppose something of a risky prospect jumping into Dogtown right away, but we seem to be managing. It's also kind of funny, because I've been playing other games for the last little while, little things like pressing F instead of something like E does kind of catch me every now and again, so I'm sure I'll be running into some exciting combat moments. We'll make it work though. Smooth.
Heard Netwatch is on the prowl, sniffing around here lately.
I'm certain I have no idea what you're talking about. Unfortunately, this thing I know nothing about is a problem for the VDBs. So much so, district power consumption has dropped by half.
Voodoo's troubles keeping you up at night? Mr. Hands the altruist.
No, disruptions to the status quo keep me up at night. My concern grows when the seeds of chaos are sown. It's bad for business.
So what's this you got for me?
V, you're Dorothy. Dropped into a foreign land. You faced many obstacles and overcome them to see Hansen's Emerald City.
Metaphor is esoteric at best. Going anywhere with it?
Only toward a happy conclusion. You've labored diligently and earned your reward. Your very own silver slippers.
By silver slippers, you mean...
A fitting end to our tale. Something that will spirit you home safely. You'll know what I mean when you see what I'm talking about. Soon.
Got all the parts cast, don't you? What's your role in the story?
Why, the narrator, of course.
Figured as much.
Right. Well, your silver slippers await outside. I wish you safe travels, V. It's been interesting, if not to say peculiar.
So that's it for our biz together?
Who can say? For the time being, it certainly is. Please, no tears. And one last thing. Be wary of witches, the wicked and the good. Until next time, V.
Yep. Till then, Hans.
Silver car? Silver car. Good song to start off with. All right, let's see what we can find in the... Well, I guess there's a couple things we can do. So one, we could try some of the things that are already in our journal. So some more cyber psychos. Epistrophe, we can do the encounter with Delamain. I'm not opposed to that. Let's maybe see if we can find some things on the way. Yeah, so there's some side jobs here, which I wouldn't say no to. Okay, so I'm thinking based on what I see here, the best bet for me is to probably just go take some of these side gigs on the way to this one. So it seems like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That seems like a decent way to spend our time for the, at least for the start. Oop. And it gets me out of Dogtown so I can have a little bit more responsiveness. I know I can always turn down the settings, but it's a shame because it's such a good looking game. Oops. Well, couldn't stay pristine forever. Now, what I imagine is going to be happening for the first few of these missions, we obviously made some decent progress in Cyberpunk when we first played it, and then we reset for Phantom Liberty. This was a recommendation when Phantom Liberty came out, but I do know there's the, you don't want things to get too repetitive, so if I sort of feel like things are starting to drag a little bit, I don't mind sort of splitting off into some... Oh, a little too far with that. I don't mind splitting off into some more main story stuff, but I don't know, right now I feel there's enough variety in the game, and there's certainly enough for us to do that I don't think we're going to be too bored, even if we do wind up remembering a few of the missions.
The attachment for more on the wheel. And its owner.
Search and recover. Objective: upload a virus and retrieve Jake Estevez's custom car. Location: McBride Street. Why is it some unwritten law of the world that every talented techie has a shit poor character? Only God knows. Jake Estevez is one such genius among techies and an asshole among shitheads. 15 minutes with the man and my barrel against his forehead. But good news is we found a way to get along. Jake's been a grease monkey for the 6th Street for about 2 weeks now. Of course, I'm not on good terms with 6th Street gang, but I do grudgingly admire their patience. It is, after all, a virtue. Over that time, Jake's been doing a custom job on a car, and then for them, his life's work, he says. Designed the software too. Remember I said he has shit poor character? Yeah, well, he pissed off the wrong Pandeos at 6th Street Gang and had to Delta and never look back. Bottom line, Jake wants his precious car back. Go to the 6th Street Gang auto shop, upload the virus I sent you, and get it back for him. Don't scratch the ride, and you'll get extra. We'll both be flush after this. Don't scratch the ride is easier said than done, but...
Look, no hard feelings. Come on out.
It's a little premature on the body, but I wasn't sure if he was going to see me or not, so... So it might have been smarter for me to ping, given that I don't know what's inside that building. But... okay, there we go. Yeah, so everybody's kind of spooked. That can't be the only person. There we go. Okay, I don't like that sound. Okay, it's gonna get a little dicey for a bit, but I think we can see this through without bloodshed. This is a tough one to handle just because you can sort of see through here, but there isn't a direct path.
Don't drag this out.
Whereas these guys, it's a little bit easier. At the very least, I can just drop down below. Might be necessary to do that, actually. We'll see.
Come on, punk. Come to Papa.
Huh?
Archive conversation, Dolores and Joaquin. I'd never do something like that, babe. You know what happened if I find out you're lying? Jake isn't even my type, sweetie, I promise you. Whoever told you this BS? Doesn't matter. XOXOXO. Don't play with me, girl, or this won't end well. Got it? Of course, babe. I love you.
I hear you breathing, scop sucker.
Okay. Unlucky, but that's life. Oh, crap. Oh, Jesus.
Watch out! Here I come!
Look,
Yeah, so sloppy, but... Okay, FF1C7AFF. So we don't have a direct path to that, but I wonder if we can do 55 double FF. So if we do that, and then 1C7AFF. So 1C7A. Yeah. Okay. So that's the path. I'm sure I can get a deck which will let me get all three. We've had that before, but I'm happy to work with what I got right now. Files registry hive error. System boot failure caused by instruction incompatibility. JAO 0000505 during unauthorized access attempt. Registry hive error. Stop. JE 0000199. Unknown hard error. Registry log lock. Instruction lock in range. Automated lock prompted by detected data corruption. Recovery module disabled. Autoconfig module disabled. Activation module removed. Reset error removed. We need to meet. Dolores, Sebastian, please talk to me. What am I supposed to do? You know when this comes out, Jake is dead. They might even make you kill him. Please, Sep. I can promise that it's the last time, but Joaquin can't find out about it. Can you do it for me, like old times? Same deal on soft. Hey, Jake, I have another request like last year. Using a company car again and want you to slip in that soft. You know, to disable the tracker. It can help me disappear after working hours and remove fuel limits. Can you help me out here? Heard you got a new place. That change anything price-wise? For now, I'll flick over the same you charged last time. I'll toss in a beer sometime. On me. Big thanks, my dude. Tino Zed. And Toon Thornton, well done. Mark Sidor to Jake Estevez. Jake, man, was supposed to let you know my wheels are rolling good now. Kudos, mate. I've taken a look at an injection angle and pressure and think there may still be some room for tweaks, but I know you know your car is like no one else. And that soft you installed for the rev limiter, first rate. Seriously. Cheers, Mark. So for some of these, I do wonder if the The wall. Why does the wall separate South California from its northern sibling? And USA officials will tell you it's about ensuring freedom and safety. After all, the first things that come to people's minds when they hear North California are shifty nomad families, illegal immigrants, and violent criminals of every stripe. They'll say the wall is necessary for customs officers to prevent smuggling, and we're not just talking drugs. Markets on the rise for trafficking include illegal cyberware, assembled in old hangars, biotech equipment, and precious items from orbital stations and lunar colonies. And I understand that. I can even understand that when you cross the border, you willingly waive your right to privacy, from having your face scanned and registered to your car being tracked by heavily armed drones that transmit your real-time coordinates to a rapid response defense system in orbit, all on the off chance that you are in fact a terrorist. For the split second that you go through the security gates, Militech, or whoever has won the bid to secure the wall, won't allow you to forget that you are in a potential war zone. And that's exactly what the wall is, a reminder. A reminder of how fragile peace and the independence of our city is. As a night citizen, I see the wall relatively frequently. Thanks to that concrete monstrosity, there's really no other way to describe it, I always bear the cost of peace in mind. Is that good? Bad? You decide for yourselves. So I think it's pretty straightforward for us to drop this off. At the very least, I'm not going to go out of my way to create much mayhem. But these were interesting missions just because I think some of these were the first ones that I did in the base game after sort of moving past the tutorial section. And what I found kind of interesting was there was a set that really seemed to reinforce some of the early themes of the game. So I'm thinking particularly the Delamain one. And then I was trying to get a little bit of a read on what some of these ones were. Now, obviously not every story or not every gig or side mission has to necessarily hit the same notes.
You really saved my ass. I can't thank you enough.
What about the ride? You gonna fence it?
Well, I have to sooner or later. Know a guy in Sacramento, a collector? He'll set me up for life. Oh, but for now, I'm taking her with me. Spruce her up a little more.
Wouldn't stick around too long if I were you. 6th Street are gonna be searching high and low for this beauty.
I'm leaving town today. It's like Uncle Estevez always said. If you gotta choose between your ride and saving someone else's ass, always choose the ride. At least you know that a ride's never gonna betray you. People, on the other hand.
All right. But yeah, so these missions were ones where I was still sort of trying to get a read on the game. It's definitely not a requirement. It's potentially not even interesting. Oh.
Excellent. The car has reached its owner. Now the money will reach you. Good deeds are always repaid in kind. Closing the contract. Until next time.
But yeah, it's potentially not even interesting to just have it hit the same note every single time, but I was still trying to get a little bit of a read in terms of where everything was going. But what I do appreciate this time is the little details in terms of the, just the various stories, the various fragments that you see in the environment, especially because we've learned quite a bit more about the world from playing Phantom Liberty. Now, I think I am going to take the opportunity to steal cars where I can, so we're going to just switch over real quick. Sure, Padre will be happy with us.
All good, all good. Let's go, go, go. Check the courts. Watch out, V. Think we pissed someone off.
Okay. I wonder if I can shake him. Not in this. Okay. Alright, now I've got NCPD after me. I was originally going to try to avoid drawing the weapon, but yeah. I at the very least need to last until I have another heal. Okay, not great for me, but okay, now there's a chance that we might be able to shake the police. I'm gonna guess that there was a don't damage the car bonus, but I'm thinking that's that was never an option. Okay, somebody wants me dead. This one, if I just put on the brakes, never mind.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Ha!
Thought it might have been a guy on a bike, but clearly I was wrong. So I'm curious if I'm going to be able to outrun him if I do this. Well, no, clearly not if I do this. But it does look like they're stuck in position, so I think if I put enough distance between myself and them, it'll count as being out of combat. The question is whether or not I lose them. Yeah.
Lose the tail or wipe 'em out yourself.
I'm thinking I'm going to have to keep going up the hill until... There we go. Oh, can we do it?
Not gonna lie, V. You got a gift. My man will take care of the rest.
So the real reason for doing a lot of this is just so that I can get the discounts on the cars. But, you know, the money's not bad either. So, still going to sort by type. I think it's pretty unlikely we're going to get an assault rifle that can clear out the bad guys. At least better than what I've already got. Okay, so this Achilles can go. We've got 2 non-lethals. And again, I must apologize. I am really feeling the lack of sleep that I got last night, so I know the commentary will suffer. I'm hoping it won't be too... I'm hoping it won't be too bad, but I am definitely running on... Definitely running on empty. All right. I can't say I want to keep the light machine gun. Like, in one sense, it's sort of nice to have in the inventory, but they're so heavy that I don't really think I can justify that. In fact, that alone's kind of solved the problem, but I might as well clean out a bit of the... well, at least a few of the duplicates. Okay. Should have taken care of the non tier 5 ones. Tough call. Okay, that's taken care of the basics. Now, it is kind of worth taking a minute to see. So, for instance, when I take a look at something like the Hercules, when it says that it's got a higher DPS, I want to at least pay attention to that. Now, the DPS in this case is because of the S. I'll also confess I'm not super stoked about a smart rifle, so I'm gonna respectfully decline that one. And then I don't know, the shotgun's interesting, but definitely not my style. So the revolver is kind of tempting, but what I would want to do in that case would be to compare it to the real alternative, which is the pistol. And in this case here, it's no match for Her Majesty. Although for some reason I kept a not very good Omaha. So the final step is we've got a pretty good club right now. We'll just make sure. So there are a couple where it says the DPS is higher, slightly slower speed, higher. But I mean, this is kind of legendary, so hard to see me parting with it. There's a couple of heuristics I can use. So anything that's got one dot is probably a candidate to get chucked. I imagine there will be a few others, but we're doing okay for inventory space, so. Okay, so as before, even if it does mean there's a little bit of a journey, I think we still go to Epistrophe. Might be a scenic route, but... But yeah, so I think I've said this kind of every time I've played Cyberpunk for the last few weeks, but the big temptation here for doing those car theft missions, it's not even necessarily that they're a favorite mission. I don't mind doing them; they're engaging, but there's two things that you get out of them. One is money, and then two is a discount at the car dealership. So the plan on that is always buy, the most expensive car in the catalog with the accumulated discounts, and then buy the cheapest cars until I run out of money. And that's effectively, for me at least, that's a reasonable enough algorithm to get through the catalog. And then we'll kind of do the same with apartments, except that apartments don't have discounts. Essentially, we just need to earn the money for apartments. And then once we are done that, we can buy cyberware. We've done all right just with the existing cyberware, so I'm not that worried about it, but it would be sort of nice to max out a character, or at least as much as I can. This is more just kind of a speculation coming out of the just being in a driving sequence in a game. I've talked a little bit about how this game sort of feels like a point of reference was Grand Theft Auto. Again, I'm not trying to suggest Cyberpunk is just an implementation of GTA 5 or something like that, but I would find it hard to believe that it wasn't at least a launching point for some of the original ideas that they had for this game. But one thing the reason why I'm thinking about Grand Theft Auto, it applies to this game as well, is crashing. So like when you crash, you get a bit of a ding to the cosmetics, the glass shatters.
Lord Lively, I got a shit job for you. Political meeting. You'll need to grab some dirty docs on Javier Alvarado, advisor to the mayor. Intel says you'll find them in the office of El Pinche Pollo. Valentino run joint. Want more details? Scan the attachment.
Okay. Gig type thievery. Objective steal data on Javier Alvarado's embezzlement activity. Location El Pinche Pollo restaurant. Details. It's election season, so everyone's got a political stick up their ass. Can't say I like it, but it's good for biz. Young woman came up to me, claims to be media. She must be a wizard with words because I've never seen a media jock like her burn so much cash. She's fishing for dirt on the mayor's advisor, Javier Alvarado. Says Alvarado is embezzling public money, padding the Valentino's pockets. Proof? Apparently found in the office of El Pinche Pollo, some Valentino-run restaurant. Have a look there. This media seemed confident of her sources. And you know how this rolls. She fronts the eddies. We don't ask who she writes for. But yeah, so one of the things I was thinking about was how I kind of remember this one. I think the fact that we've been to Jackie's wake might actually help. Might as well get eyes on all the baddies. Okay, so I gotta remember there's a camera inside here.
Hey, come on. How much can one beer cost in the hill? Fuck you going. You lost or something?
I know you from somewhere. Hold on. Weren't you a friend of Jackie's? I saw you at his funeral.
You knew Wells?
Yeah, we were tight, him and me.
Jackie fucking Wells! Guay was like a brother to us. More than once when he left the Valentinos. Second time when he... Come on, let's get a drink. To Jackie. What? We go look? Let's go, come on! To Jackie! Give him hell up there, brother! One more, let's go! Arriba, abajo, al centro, pa' dentro! All right, I gotta go back. Chill here if you like. But don't do nothing stupid, mano. You pull some gunk shit, not even Jackie will save me.
Oh, crap. I don't want to redo too much, but I should have remembered there was a camera there too. But yeah, so the thing I was saying earlier about car crashes, so like if you see a car crash on the street, like even if it's after the fact, but it very often is not like what you will see in something like Grand Theft Auto. You know, it'll be the world in that particular part just sort of stops. And the 1 second. So E97A 1C55 triple E9 doesn't really work though, does it? Okay. Somebody's mad.
Don't go asking Pacifica. Think I've got a secret admirer.
Little Prez, Mauricio, it's done. Blurs through the cage, got chirpy, got fucked up, whipped their claws out, Cam scrolled all of it. They'll eat out of your hand, they're ours now. Let me know when you want to apply pressure. Neighborhood support. Dear Dr. Salinas, I look upon your business and philanthropy in the Glen with great interest. It's thanks to enterprising people such as you that the area is teeming with life and development opportunities. I'm absolutely convinced our cooperation can prosper under current conditions. Of course, in the event of any changes, regionally so to speak, we will reassess our arrangements as needed. Respectfully, Javier Alvarado. Pay up or your head will explode. Hey Choom, today is your unlucky day. You're probably wondering who I am. I'm a voodoo boy. Probably heard of us. Remember last time you hit the net? Yeah, me too. I hack your coprocessor and install a little surprise for you. Now you do what I say or your head goes boom. I think $1,000 is fair pay to keep your head. If you pay, I uninstall my surprise. If not, I blow up your head, but blow up the head of the person you love most first. And if you tell NCPD, I blow up your head twice. You have 2 days to pay. And I know you read this because I install spy cam in your optics. We read it together. This is not a negotiation, Choom, so do not reply. Just pay and you will live.
Some things never change. Gonks tick the ballot and think they're actually making a choice. Only ever been one choice in this city. Corruption.
Can't
Same
take the
shit,
money?
Different assholes. And every time they think this time will be different. Well, we get what we fucking deserve.
Yeah, so whether it's GTA 5, whether it's Cyberpunk, like I do kind of compare the crash that that you can experience in the game versus kind of what it's like in the real world. So if you yeah, whether you see it on the street, everything sort of stops, particularly once the police are on the scene. Usually traffic's, sort of directed around it. You need to wait for a tow truck in some cases. But then there is the assault in progress. We'll do that. If I have to do it the mean way, I'll do it, but... Nope.
Wanna see what I'll do? Huh? Gonk, get back!
Alright. That didn't go according to plan. Alright, you know what? Tried to be nice about it, but didn't quite work. But yeah, so if you think about sort of how these things tend to work in the world, like it definitely doesn't really feel like there's sort of that bump and then move on. Call to arms. I'll keep this short and sweet. Those asswipes at 6th Street shot up Gustavo's ride. No reason, just because he was out there and they could. His output was inside. Took 7 bullets, 2 to the head. Survived, but not clear if she'll ever talk again or get out of bed. Don't know about you, but I can't let that slide. Plan to pay him a visit tomorrow, shoot at as many of those motherfuckers as I can. If you want to come with, meet at Esteban's store, high noon. Take your iron and enough ammo to go around. DS. Something tells me I'm not going to be able to get up over that. Oops. Yes, the reason I pointed out is not necessarily... Like, so Grand Theft Auto would not be a very fun game if every single time, you know, you got in a traffic accident, you know, just... You felt bad and you know, and shocked and you couldn't really do anything for a bit, and then, you know, and then you waited for the experience to be processed. But the other thing I was reflecting on was there is the J.G. Ballard book Crash, and obviously that the weird thing, like I have read it, and it's probably a bit more... I mean, it's kind of funny to call it avant-garde because it is a really old book, but it's definitely a little more than what's my sort of casual reading. I always felt I was sort of just on the verge of getting something, you know, really good with it. And then there were a couple moments where I just sort of had trouble following. But the one thing, I have been in an accident before. And the thing that I actually found very strange is that even though it's a book that is just describing something that is kind of outside any of my realm of really experience or interest, it actually does there's definitely a few points where I was sort of like, you know, this is actually making some sense. Which I'm hoping doesn't communicate anything bad about me. Like, obviously I'm speaking in more general terms. I've not suddenly found a new pastime. But it did sort of make me think. Now, again, this is a question of a, you know, a game as opposed to a book. So the interests and the sort of time frame are different. And yet, I have to imagine that because... Oh, I think I'm caught. Yeah. We'll see.
Ain't nowhere to hide, so just come out. Hey.
That's totally on me. But yeah, when you think of sort of appropriate subjects for drama, Crash actually does a really good job. And the funny thing is that I've seen racing games that want to be more realistic, and so essentially any time you touch something that basically isn't pavement, that is just going to throw the car completely out, or potentially just lose you the race. And then I'll have something like Need for Speed where you can't just sort of hold down the accelerator. Oh, come on. All right. I'll get that through the journal now. But that's probably somewhere between the full sim and the in Grand Theft Auto. And yet I do sometimes wonder, like, given that this is something that has been covered in other media, because the Crash book was adapted into a film, a Canadian film by David Cronenberg. Not a bad one, actually. You sort of wonder, is there a way to do some of the stuff that was done in that book or in that film in a game? And is there any benefit to doing so? Obviously, if you're going to make a big game like Cyberpunk, you probably can't afford to do that unless it's a big sort of set piece. But on the other hand, when you have any number of indies, the idea of the cost of making an indie being lower than it's ever been, and, in theory, the market being potentially open to new ideas if they're well executed, it kind of feels like an area for an enterprise. Well, I mean, a sufficiently interested and enterprising game to give it a shot. And I mean, maybe at the top end it can be done too. It's just that feels like out of all of the things that you could use as a point of inspiration and an idea to make something with, it seems a little more. It just doesn't feel appropriate. There's actually something. I'll tell you what. I'll read this entry here, and then we can talk about the next bit. So, Extraction NC EX 56882. Pursuant to the ongoing investigation into the case of Javier Alvarado, NC INV 33122, Geraldo Estevez is to be located and extracted. Estevez is suspected of possessing information on the cooperation between the aforementioned Alvarado and the Valentinos gang. The Investigations Department has determined that Estevez's place of residence, Ventura Street, detailed coordinates and attachment. Upon arrival at the site, Estevez shall be incapacitated and transported to the Neural Investigations Department. Intelligence suggests Estevez will be found alone. Any potential witnesses are to be permanently neutralized. The operation has been approved by the NCPD. There will be no police intervention. Sincerely, Keenan Thornton, Deputy Director of Operations, Investigations Department, Night City Branch, Militech. I kind of like Alan Moore's stuff. Is the way that I can start this. So I haven't read all of his work. I'm trying to remember. I think Watchmen might have been the first one. But I like the America's Best Comics stuff that I read. I really enjoyed Promethea. I've read From Hell. I really, really enjoyed V for Vendetta. I realize that some of these are, works that he's disowned for one reason or another. And to a certain, there is actually something that I kind of wonder about that. Because, I've never made a work like that. And I understand at least some of that is a function of his relationship or, lack of a relationship with certain publishers. And, Alan Moore is a very good writer. He comes across as a very interesting guy in interviews. He's a persuasive guy, and I have to appreciate, right, having been on both sides of, any number of disputes, that perhaps, like when he says DC swindled him, was this the case, right? Was there an actual effort to deceive? Was there a misunderstanding on both parts? And I will be the first to say it is hard when you've really committed to one particular version of events to back off. And what tends to happen is, in your mind, things tend to crystallize, and obviously you're going to portray yourself in the best possible light. And of course the others are just absolutely terrible. But here's the thing, right? Like, it's absolutely not my place to litigate what happened to Alan Moore. Let's be honest here, right? Like, some of these companies are The thing that I've always felt a little funny about is that I recognize that sorry, I know I'm really unpacking this idea here, but the intellectual property system that we have, I don't think anyone would voluntarily like build that from scratch, right? We have the product of a number of sort of compromises and maybe decisions that didn't properly think through all of the implications. You know, again, it's not the thing that anybody would sit down and create from first principles. But it is the system that we have, and I think to a certain extent, kind of the onus is on people to show how the reform is better. And I realize, you know, I've heard no end of comment. Well, that's just an inherently conservative position. And like, I guess I have to say, it's like, I'm not entirely sure, you know, calling something conservative is the slam dunk that you think it is, right? You know, I am reasonably secure in my own positions, political and otherwise. You know, we can talk about this or we cannot. But you know, one of the things that I've sort of recognized is that one of the things that publishers and just generally the companies do, right, because these are much longer lived entities, one of the functions that I think they can perform is taking a stream of revenues, right? So if you write a book or a comic or make a game or whatever, I mean, this is true for basically any asset, right? But let's just say this particular creative work. There is some stream of revenue that this will generate, right? So if you make Stardew Valley, you might see a very large stream of revenue, even from the very beginning. But over the life of that game, there is going to be money that it earns. And for particularly good works, these are things that will actually have a stream of revenue that outlives the author. So, you know, if you're Warner Brothers and you have Casablanca, you're very happy, right? I guess if you're Warner Brothers, you also have a bunch of the HBO stuff, which there seems to be a degree of deserved nostalgia for. I mean, I'm still, you know, occasionally finding stuff from sort of HBO's first golden age, which, you know, some of it, like I've tried watching The Sopranos a couple of times, and I don't know if it was just something about the time that it came out or what. I've not been able to go the whole way through. But, you know, they had a really good one, Rome, that I really enjoyed. So, you know, and Carnival actually was also really interesting. It seems like it was very expensive and they stopped it before they could properly send it off. But the idea here is that the role that I think these companies play is this machine basically that converts that stream of revenue that, you know, may outlive the author, to convert that into a, you know, either a one-time or basically some form that they can benefit from. And, you know, they are sort of, basically they're kind of taking the role that a bank does in a lot of circumstances. And so there's going to be some, you know, amount that they get. Like, obviously money in the future is worth less than money today, if nothing else, just because you have the option of spending the money today. But, you know, again, you wouldn't want it to be too heavily weighted in favor of the publisher. And presumably if it's a sufficiently good work, there's some sort of bidding war that happens or something along those lines. If it's not sufficiently popular, you know, then yeah, there is going to be the difficulty of having to try and navigate that sort of stuff. Anyways, what I'm trying to say here is that I, to myself at least, have a mental model through which publishers and these business entities that are very often looked down on, I have a mental model that says they can have an important role to play in creating the sorts of experiences or helping bring about the sorts of experiences that we all really enjoy. Very few people are ever going to say, you know, a wonderful System Chalk, you know, won't anybody think of the corporation's interests, right? I get that, you know, but I think sometimes there is value in taking that perspective because you just, you know, learn more about the world and you you instead of just the world being this set of horrible things that just happens to people, you can sort of understand, okay, here's why. Is there a way we can adjust this? Doesn't need to be adjusted. So anyways, that's a massive throat clearing to just sort of say. So the thing that's kind of funny to me is that, like, he obviously has a very bad relationship with DC. And I think what's very tough is that I believe America's Best Comics eventually wound up under the DC name, and because he feels so strongly about that business relationship, he has disowned a lot of works that, at least to me, I think are very well done. And to a certain extent, it would be I mean, again, because I don't have that level of talent, maybe to me, like, I would be less willing to part with it just because I don't think I would have that in me. Whereas perhaps somebody who regularly is able to produce that sort of work doesn't have the same, I don't know, doesn't sort of cling on to the work as much. I don't know. I mean, I can't pretend to know the contents of the man's head, but he's got a Maestro. So the BBC's got kind of a version of Masterclass called Maestro, and he's got a storytelling series on that. Haven't really seen it, but I think it's kind of interesting because it's roughly around the time that there was a gap between him doing a series of essays called Writing for Comics, and then I think it was Avatar Press combined them and put out like an anniversary edition, which he wrote an afterword for. And the time period from the original Writing for Comics series to the Avatar Press one, it's about the time that BBC Maestro course came out. Like, it's almost kind of saying, so I kind of wondered, like, is this his sequel to Writing for Comics? But one of the things that I thought was really interesting is that he sort of talked about this idea, and this is coming all the way back to that crash thing I was saying. Sorry, again, I'm really tired, and I know I tend to babble when I'm tired. What I think was interesting about this is that he was sort of talking about all of these various ideas that he had for comic devices. So there's I only really found out about this working on a political campaign, but there's this thing called a Burma shave, and I think that's where they put up like a bunch of road signs, and this is apparently based off of an advertising campaign where there'd sort of be these little rhymes on the billboards, and they would always end with Burma shave. And so it became a bit of a thing, right? Like, once you saw the rhyme, you'd want to sort of see how they would get to the Burma shave. Apparently a very effective one, and you can sort of see why. Moore sort of talked about how he had sort of had this idea for like a Burma shave style setup in the dialogue box. Like, essentially sort of that would be the way that certain ideas are communicated in the comic, because if you've ever read a comic, there'll sometimes be the dialogue bubbles, but sometimes there's also the white text. So playing between the Burma shave commercials and the narration. And then he talks a little bit about how that wound up in Swamp Thing, I think. And one of the things that really kind of strikes me, he gives a few more examples like those. And I think in the case of something like comics, which, especially at that time, I think were not necessarily intended to be these sort of deluxe productions. They were sort of designed to be made for, relatively little money. This is the sort of thing where you can afford to do that kind of experimentation. If you have a fun idea, the cost of doing that is relatively small. And it does, this does always bring me back to the indie stuff, right? Because sometimes you see indies just trying to either emulate what bigger games are doing, or following commercially successful trends. And I think to a certain extent, like, even if the motive is just purely commercial, right, at the very least you have people trying to give the the audience what they want, right? I actually don't necessarily think there's something inherently wrong with that, because in the end there is at least that the audience is getting this for their money. And yet on the other hand, it also sort of seems to be a way to not have new ideas. There was something from Ursula Le Guin that I was going to say about this too, but let's get through the hack and then we can move on to the main idea. But anyways, I don't think it would be reasonable to say... Oh, yeah, we got it. I think it would be reasonable to say that independent gaming has the same low cost as the types of comics that Moore was talking about in writing for comics. That's pushing the argument a little too far. But to a certain extent, some of this is just a matter of degree, right? So maybe you don't have, the clever idea for the Burma shave thing, but you do, maybe the crash idea goes somewhere, right? How do you incorporate the feeling of a car crash and that idea that allowed a very good novelist like J.G. Ballard to create a book like Crash? How do you take that point of inspiration and can you put that in a game, right? The sort of thing, I think what interests me about that is the sort of thing that someone looks at you and says, there's no way to do it. Why would you even try? Or who would ever want something like that, right? There's all sorts of reasons that people would give you for saying it won't work. And maybe they're right. But the thing is, again, it's been done in two different types of media, right? It's been done in print. It's been done on film. So what is it specifically about games that prevent that idea from being explored? Because even then, if we do find out that it can't be done, maybe we've just learned something about games that we didn't know before. I do need to take a little bit of a break sometime soon, so I might try to find the quote that I was looking for.
Hey, you. Sitting in the wrong spot.
This isn't a bar?
It is. But it's our bar. Get up. Let's take a walk. Hey, leave him alone, cabrones. Hey, back off. Ain't doing biz here.
You heard what Pepe said. Take a fucking walk.
June, fuck off. Or I implant my blade in your ribs.
Just try, Gonk. Come on. Let's see what you got.
Well, just got real fucking interesting.
But what just happened? Landed in a little trouble. Cleaned up now.
God damn, sorry. I think I've had a little too much. Fuck, what a night. Why'd you help me?
Because you would have caught a beating. Or worse.
This fucking town, these people? Just here, minding my own business. If it weren't for you, I'd... Here, for your trouble. The rest, bartender got the rest.
Circling him like sharks on the scent of fresh corpo blood. could have ended badly if you hadn't stepped in, V.
Yeah, well, not all heroes wear capes.
How about we drink to you, then? On the house.
Not this time, but thanks.
Don't drink on the clock, eh? I get it. Respect that.
Long day?
Could say that again. I'm on a double. No break.
Working overtime to make an extra buck?
Nah, just don't want to go home. 10 years married, you know? 10 years and suddenly I'm not good enough. No, she has to go get some side action. Anyhow, since you brought up money, you wouldn't be looking for a gig, would you be? Pay solid.
Run me through it.
It's about my wife, right? Name's Cynthia. She's cheating. I'm sure of it. Only question is, who will? Could let it eat away at me. Or I could get someone like you. Ain't no more than an evening's work.
Sure she's cheating on you?
Let's start with the fact that she always stays late after work. I know she's lying. Called her office one night, she wasn't even there. Besides that, well, we got a kid together, right? Doesn't even look like me. Different hair, different eyes, all of it. Used to be easy to check these things, but with today's tech, there's a way around every test now.
Why you want to know who she's with? What's the point?
What's the point? What kind of gunk question is that?
Simple one. Answer it.
I want to look him in the eyes. Ask him how it feels fucking some other guy's wife. Breaking up a happy marriage.
Gonna have to keep tabs on your wife. Follow her around town. Where'd she be now?
She works nearby. I'll give you the address. Knowing her, she'll be on a smoke break. Smokes like a goddamn tire fire.
Like half this city.
Wait. But today, she was wearing a pink jacket. And, she had a blue purse, I think.
Colorful.
Always like dressing up. Get a woman something nice for her birthday, anniversary. And what do you get in return?
Okay, fine. I'm in.
You're my hero, V. Means a lot to me.
Okay, I'm going to follow up on this one because I do remember Johnny actually gets some good lines in this one, but I'm going to take a minute for a break. I know it's kind of quiet tonight. I am tired, so I am actually going to need to... I'll try not to keep it long, but I do need to... I do just need to sort myself out. The other thing, too, is like if it's going to be like... if it's going to be like Monday, I think I'm not going to feel committed to doing a full 3 hours. But, oh, this might be why. Anyways, I am going to get some tea, try and just wake up a little bit. And I'll try not to make it too long, but I am just going to try and straighten myself out. And I'm also curious about this. Oh, here it is. Okay. I think I worked out the other thing I was looking for. Anyways, I will see you all in a little bit. Okay, I'm hoping that wasn't too long. I did find the quote that I was looking for, but let's get a little more gameplay in before I lose.
Seedy Bar's betrayal of beguiling woman sounds like something out of a pulpy noir thriller. Pepe was used to listening to his customers' complaints, but now it was he who needed to get something off his chest. It was the same old story, an unfaithful wife in a city where everything was uncertain.
You about done? I'm trying to focus.
I think I'll do this this one on foot. So actually, before I go too much further, so one way to kind of move on this, because I think on Cyberpunk streams, I have actually wound up talking about sort of creativity and specifically the types of stories that we're looking at. And I feel a little complicated when it comes to Cyberpunk 2077 because to a certain extent, anything Cyberpunk is basically taking ideas and aesthetics from the late 70s and 80s, really. And, again, to a certain extent, if you're going to be inspired by something, Blade Runner's, not bad. But on the other hand, I think it is also sort of fair to say that, it does really feel like Cyberpunk has made a strong effort to sort of be be itself. This definitely could have been a different, like, it's one thing I like about this is it's a cyberpunk city, but it is not always something like this. It has its Blade Runner references for sure, but it does have a few things that you wouldn't necessarily see in other cyberpunk games. When I say cyberpunk games, I'm of course not referring to the...
I arrived on the scene looking for the woman in the pink jacket, the woman with a sordid past.
Stop right there.
It was her, the lady in pink, breaker of hearts, framed by a halo of cigarette smoke. I followed her.
Dreaming of the day the narrator put a fucking plug in it.
Got too close. Almost scared the dame off. Better be careful.
I know.
As much as I would love to do.
The woman looked around. Something weighed on her. Maybe it was my gaze.
Keep this up, I'm a fucking puke. Narrate that.
I'd love to do the assault in progress, but obviously I need to keep on top of a Raymond Chandler evening.
The woman passes a bum, gives him a wide berth, doesn't want her clothes dirty. Her conscience is already dirty enough.
Oh, seriously, what did I ever do to you?
Watch yourself.
Leave me alone!
The dame disappeared into the guts of a building ready to collapse. The air hung heavy with smog and betrayal.
Ugh. Maybe it's a good thing I'm dying.
Hey, careful! You'll tear my shirt!
Well, well, well.
Hey, you! What are you doing here?
Fuck, Cynthia. Told you to make sure nobody followed you.
Husband sent me. Suspected something.
What?
See who was right.
No! It's not like that. I can explain.
Go on then, let's hear it.
Okay, for one thing, he's not my input. He's my ripper. A specialist in plastic surgery.
A specialist in this dump.
Look, I know, I had this little accident a few years ago. The victim, well, the patient's family still can't let it go. That's why I'm forced to work here.
Hold on a sec. What about your kid?
Here's the thing, I didn't used to look like this. I had a total body sculpt. Skin, hair, eyes, everything. Except, well, you can't fool your genes. That's why our son looks different than Pepe imagined. It's not because he's not the father, just that I don't look anything like the old me.
But why? Why do that?
And why do you think? Out of boredom? Because I was a rich, basic bitch? Everyone's got their own secret. Something they want to forget or leave behind them. I had a lot of them. And I can't share them with anyone. Not even my own husband. I know I should have told Pepe about all this, but there was never a good time. And now that I'm expecting again, it wasn't planned. Please, tell him that...
Yes?
I don't know what to tell him myself. That I'm really sorry. That life's an absurdist drama, okay? Just go.
Hit the nail on the head with that last point.
Wasn't there an option? I thought there was an option where you tell her to open up with him.
Job's done. Followed your wife. Went into some rundown pad. Man was waiting for her inside.
I knew it. What else?
Knew it, huh? Didn't know a thing. Didn't cheat on you. At least, not in the way you think.
Huh? What way, then?
She was at a Ripper's getting a scan. Her skin, hair, eyes, it's all implanted. Every single last part of her.
So, my son. That's why he...
Exactly.
Jesus fucking Cristo. How could you keep this from me? Our own husband, 10 fucking years. It's not about the skin or whatever, it's that she lied. How the hell am I supposed to trust her now?
Okay, yes, Cynthia was hiding something from you. Yes, she lied, but the woman loves you, you gonk. You know how much that means in this fucking town? If I were you, I'd just live and let live, you know?
Yeah. I guess you're right. Anyway, thanks. This is for you. For your troubles.
Good man, Pepe. Take care.
Silence fell like a wet blanket over the city, muffling its cries. Time to rest, I thought. Time to drink.
See? That's more like it. Finally making some sense.
Heads up, in case you're looking, I'm at home. Couldn't focus on shit. Standing and wiping glasses like a fucking robot. If something comes up, call me. Probably should have read that before. Alright, so there was some of the creativity stuff that I was wanting to talk about. But basically, as much as I would like to, you know, leverage this particular game for, you know, for the point, I actually find it kind of hard to do. I do think that there are some interesting things that the game... So, one specific thing I mean by this, I was taking a look at the numbers, and I think it's something along the lines of, I think it was 60%. So I was going over the top sellers for 2023 on Steam, and if you look at the regular top sellers, you have games that are potentially several years old. So like Grand Theft Auto is still in the absolute, in the platinum tier, despite the fact that that game has been around forever, basically. So what I did was I took a look specifically at the new releases, and 60% of the games in new releases are either remakes, remasters, sequels, or adaptations of existing properties, like branded stuff. So like Warhammer 40k, or a movie tie-in or something like that. This doesn't always communicate something very positive. I'm gonna try BD 1C7A55 now. This is my only 7A. Can I pull it off? Yep. And orders. We want to send the good people of Vista a message loud and clear. Tinos won't protect you. Valentinos are weak. The Valentinos are nothing but trouble. So we go in guns blazing. I want to see a firefight. That'll be a top story for a whole goddamn week. We want them afraid of us. Want them begging for mercy. Give it all you got. Okay. Oh. Trauma drama. I didn't appreciate there was more than one playable game. I do feel like I want to try Roach Racer. Alright, I will also try Trauma Drama at some point, but see if we can make more progress on Roach Race. Ooh. Oh, what was I thinking? I'm gonna try again. Oh, that almost went bad. Ah. I feel like I shouldn't be risking for some of those apples as much as I am, but I don't know. I'm not going to get better if I don't take risks. So I could have been a little braver on that one, though. So I can't remember if I've gotten past this level yet or not, but in terms of high scores, we're not even close. I think it's 3,000 and change for the top spot. Although I have commented before, so I think I'm trying to remember. I think it could have actually been somebody who went to Vancouver Film School's game program that I was talking with. I know she was a producer at EA for a while, I think on NHL. But we're talking about some of the exercises that you'll do in a game development program. And this definitely reads a bit like one of those. So the idea of like make a game and your constraint is that you can only use one button. And, you know, what kind of a game can you make out of it? I can actually see a lot of ways in which that can be a really good exercise. So first of all, this is actually quite enjoyable. But the other thing about it, so there's a book that I quite enjoyed called A Beautiful Constraint. And I think sometimes there can be a drawback in reading books like that where because there are so many sort of positive examples, you know, sometimes you do forget how hard some of the stuff is, right? Like, you know, I could sort of say, okay, you know, as a streamer, you know, your beautiful constraint is that it's a oversaturated market and, you know, I do a certain type of cast which isn't very popular and, you know, how do you build an audience? How do you entertain people out of that? You know, there are also situations which are just hopeless. And sometimes it's important to have the discernment that says when something is, you know, hopeless as opposed to, you know, thinking that you might be able to turn it around and that the constraint, like, not all constraints are beautiful, I think is maybe the lesson to take out of that. But with that in mind, you can absolutely see how for oh, I did not know that could get to the bottom. Okay, interesting. I'm going to try one more time, simply because I didn't appreciate that the crow could actually get to the bottom of the screen like that. All right, that was embarrassing. Um, yeah, I don't know. I sort of feel like when you're first faced with sort of an assignment like that, it's sort of like, this has none of the qualities that I associate with games. This isn't the reason why I wanted to make games. This is the worst assignment ever. How can you make a good game with only one button? And very clearly people can. I mean, I think there's a reason why that is an assignment. And I mean, let's not kid ourselves, right? I don't think the assignment is asking you to make, you know, your masterpiece with only one button. But what I do think it is trying to teach is that, you know, there can be a certain type of thinking which says, okay, add another feature, right? Add another button. You know, if you don't think the game's going well, if you don't think, you know, people are having fun, add more. And of course, that was essentially saying add more complexity. And that very quickly shows itself not to be the solution, right? One of the reasons why I believe 4X in particular, but most strategy games are able to command a certain price on Steam, but more so than other genres, is that strategy is actually quite hard to do, right? There is a degree of complexity to it. You do need to balance that well. And there is a fairly large audience that I don't necessarily think always... I don't think they're that fully catered to, precisely because those games are actually quite hard to make. So, you know, again, I suppose maybe the pithy way of putting it would just be to say, you know, if you feel that adding a button is the solution to make the game better, you know, try and make a 4X, right? A complicated game. But yeah, no, I think exercises like that are kind of interesting just because they probably start expanding your idea of, one, what a game can be, but also how you can make the most out of the tools that you have available to you. So, you know, the one button thing is a really stark version of that, but you can see how even if you have only like a limited number of behaviors, you know, being able to... we talked about this with Dead Space, actually, right? That to a certain extent, they have one really common beat, and yet they always find new ways of doing the, you know something's going to come out at you, but building up the anticipation and giving the payoff. Like, they find new ways of doing that throughout the entire game. And of course, this is a genre where basically people will say, you know, anything that made them jump is a jump scare and therefore bad. So, I don't know, like, even... No, obviously Dead Space has more than one button, but you can kind of see how extending that logic to something a bit more complicated can still give good foundations for... you know, for trying to make something new. And I mean, it's worth saying, right? Like, I've not played Witcher 3, but the one thing I keep hearing about The Witcher 3 is that it has very interesting side quests, which are very rewarding to play. And I have to imagine the willingness to do little exercises like this might contribute to the fact that there are things that might normally be considered you know, not very important, or you know, you're not writing the main story, so you know, you're just doing a little bit of filler to make sure that people feel like they got the $60 worth, and instead treating... Oh, I'm sorry, just 1 second. Instead, sort of treating it like something that is worthy of its own... Oh, damn it. Okay. I forget they moved back as well, so I should have just tried to jump over it. I don't think I'm going to try again just because I want to... I'd like to do Trauma Driver as well. Or, sorry, Trauma Drama. Okay, well, here you go. So... finally get my chance to play Trauma Team. So I guess this is like Contra. I pretty much just took up all my lives on that stage, though. That's fine. We're learning the game. Oh, it can't even touch the helicopter. Jesus. Alright, I think that's game over. No. No continue. So that's fun. I actually think I kind of prefer the Roach race a little bit more, but... 35 to 30. Where does that put me? Fourth? Yeah. I just don't see my name. All right. Another time, Roach Race. Right, Le Guin. So yeah, it was just this idea, you know, I wish, especially when Cyberpunk was unpopular, that I could say more of this, like, yeah, you know, AAA, it's all, you know, all uncreative. And it, you know, again, like some of this is an issue, right? Like it is an existing property. It is sort of picking up almost a certain nostalgia at this point. So there's something to be said for the idea that we have nostalgic dystopia. But I do sort of feel that there are some things about this, particularly about just sort of the brightness and some of the attitude in some of the outfits. I can't quite get as mad about it as I do in some other cases. But to this point of marketing, I think the thing, again, one of the reasons why I sort of push kind of hard on indies. I was reading, there's this passage that I got sent about from Ursula Le Guin, and it says, right now we need writers who know the difference between production of a market commodity and the practice of an art. Developing written material to suit sales strategies in order to maximize corporate profit and advertising revenue is not the same thing as responsible book publishing or authorship. Yet I see sales departments giving control over editorial. I see my own publishers, in a silly panic of ignorance and greed, charging public libraries for an ebook 6 or 7 times more than they charge customers. We just saw a profiteer try to punish a publisher for disobedience, and writers threatened by corporate fatwa. And I see a lot of us, the producers who write books and make books, accepting this, letting commodity profiteers sell us like deodorant and tell us what to publish, what to write. Books aren't just commodities. The profit motive is often in conflict with the aims of art. We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. But then so did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. Resistance and change often begins in art. Very often in our art, the art of words. I've had a long career as a writer, and a good one, in good company. Here at the end of it, I don't watch American literature get sold down the river. We who live by writing and publishing want and should demand our fair share of the proceeds. But the name of our beautiful reward isn't profit. Its name is freedom. So, I like that, particularly because I think. Let me grab this. Suspected murderer. Leave the area to avoid becoming an NCPD suspect.
New fingerprints detected.
Fuck?
Increasing volume by 33%. New fingerprints detected.
What the hell are you?
User inquiry. Technical specifications. HJKE11 smart gun with built-in AI. Experimental model. Name. Skippy.
Guy by the dumpster. That your owner?
Checking memory. Resources available. 100%. All files removed manually. Possible cause. Theft. Original owner. No data. Suggested solution. None.
I got one. I'll take it.
Processing request. No objections found.
Still got all your functions?
Running system diagnostics. Testing will take approximately 47 seconds. Bum, bum, be-dum, bum, bum.
What are you doing?
I'm making the wait more pleasant with a soothing melody. Bum, bum.
How you doing, Lord Gloom? Good to see you.
Test successfully completed. The program Skippy version 0.01 alpha is running correctly.
Alright, so what can you do? Besides talk my ear off.
Primary feature, automated targeting. In case of critical threat to user, autonomous shooting capabilities. Please choose one of 2 operating modes. First mode, puppy-loving pacifist. I will aim at the enemy's lower extremities. Second mode, stone-cold killer. I will aim exclusively at the head.
Guess I'll go with puppy-loving pacifist.
Adjusting settings. Bum bum be-dum bum bum be-dum bum. Selected mode, puppy-loving pacifist. Enjoy permanently crippling your enemies.
You love this gun as in you've played this in the game before, or just you like the character? Care for some advice? Caution, V, especially now. After the untimely death of their master, Hansen's hounds will be tearing at each other's throats, and at any outsiders who get in their way. By some miracle, it seems that Jago and Bennett are now working in tandem. I have no idea how you did it, but Dogtown has never been this well run. Truly excellent work. Both, gotcha. What option did you pick out of curiosity? I don't like this gun. Let me see if I can get a quick shout out here. You may be the only person here, Lord Gloom. I know I didn't tag it properly, but I also think people are just giving up on me. Where was it? Her Majesty. There we go. What were you playing lately, by the way? I feel like I haven't seen you online, but I also have had some weird hours, so I may have just missed you. Anyway, you know, again, there's always that side of me that wants to just sort of run with the popular line, you know. Yeah, it's the companies, man. they're ruining everything. I just kind of guess that I'm playing Pain Core this weekend. Oh, I haven't heard of that. I should take a look. Tarkov was the last? Alright. Alright. How far do we have? 3 kilometers and 2.5 minutes. Not easy, but we'll see. We'll see how well we can do it. Actually, to your point about a clean Cyberpunk city, I think one of the reasons for this, if I'm not mistaken, is that it sort of takes place after the bomb goes off, and they've reconstructed a part of Night City. And I suppose there's that difference, right, between leaving it a ruined waste or turning it into something better. Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, I've never... Oops. Okay, so... The police tail is going to be a problem, but I might be able to give him a slip. Oh, crap. Yeah, this is going to get bad in a minute. Okay. Got a bit lucky there. I can't really afford to hang around too much, though, because we have almost a minute. Actually, I seem to recall Alien Isolation, at least on consoles, also did that, which I thought was a neat idea. It's a shame that it didn't do it for PC, but I think especially like if there's breathing or something like that, I think that's a neat idea. But yeah, so I guess the biggest thing that I can say is that if I just take the common complaint about the large publishers for granted, I guess I just don't worry that much if the answer is, you know, oh, you know, they're not doing a whole lot of original stuff, for the simple reason that it's like, well, what else are we expecting, right? Like, you know, I do actually think historically you can say that, you know, a publisher like EA was actually sort of at the cutting edge.
Oh, yeah, I knew I picked the right merc for the gig. Thanks for the help, V. My chum will do the finishing touches.
I'd actually argue...
Token of my appreciation waiting for you in the drop locker.
I'd actually argue that EA is still still in that category. So, you know, I know nobody thinks Immortals of Avium was a success, but I think there's something to be said for the fact that EA continues to invest in new properties, even when they haven't consistently had they haven't necessarily had consistent financial success with them. I actually think that there is something admirable about that, because it sort of shows a long-term view rather than the sort of focus on the quarter attitude. Now again, you can't be promising forever, right? Like, you do eventually need to deliver something. And I don't mean to suggest EA Originals hasn't delivered. Obviously, A Way Out and It Takes Two, I think, were both financially successful as well as critically acclaimed. I enjoyed... I had a good time with Fee. I don't necessarily think it's like the best out of the program, but I do feel that it was interesting. Like, I was glad that I played it. Lost in Random, I think, is by the same developer and I'd like to spend a little more time in that. But so despite the fact that I may have kind of a contrarian view on who the bad guy is in these stories, I think in a time when there's really no excuse in terms of making a game, like, if you've said that is your passion and you want to do it, like, really now is the time to do it, right? The idea that the AAA is somehow supposed to be the vanguard, I think, is a very interesting concession. And it would seem to me probably it's one that we might want to examine, especially when you think about that Le Guin quote, and if really what's happening is that the people who should be taking risks, who can afford to take risks, in the sense that their games need to have a smaller audience to be able to sort of break even. Now, breaking even isn't necessarily making a living, so I understand that there is a little bit of a challenge there. But I suppose, again, it's just really interesting that whenever I sort of complain about this stuff, and obviously I complain about this a lot, I very frequently hear from people like, well, movies aren't original, or the big game studios aren't doing it, or whatever. And I'm like, well, okay, but like, what was all that talk about, bringing diverse voices into gaming and and enabling people to tell stories? Like, what happened to that? The dream came true. Like, where are my games? And even with that in mind, right, we are actually quite lucky in terms of a lot of the games that we get. We do get, Cultist Simulators and Return to the Obra Dins and Papers, Please and things like that. But I do sometimes think, whether it's people, again, nostalgia for dystopia, or independents following very closely what bigger games are doing. I do sometimes wonder if we should be asking, where is this almost hidden? It's like, I put it to you this way, like, think of the number of game developers that there were at any given, time. And then, think, okay, well, what proportion of that produced, the sort of works that were like, oh yeah, this was really a special moment in terms of gaming. And then can kind of consider the number now and ask if there's a proportional number of, high quality works being produced. You may be able to make that argument. It's a really hard one to do because, an algorithm is not necessarily going to quantify that. And it's very easy to sort of take a look at all of the, pornographic visual novels and, sort of imitations of more successful games, and feel like there's like there's no hope. But on the other hand, I do think that there is actually a very reasonable case to be made that there is basically a gap. There's a bunch of very, very good games that should have been made and weren't for reasons that may not be entirely clear. So it says, do you suspect what we are seeing indie or smaller companies actually innovating is more of a quantity thing, a numbers game, so AAA stagnates even though they should take risks? Well, I would argue that AAA is in less of a position to take risks. They really are the products that do kind of need to appeal to everyone to make their money. Now, the funny thing is that they do innovate, right? Like Apex Legends brings something new to Battle Royale and was able to successfully compete with Fortnite. Overwatch may be the product of a lot of Team Fortress sessions and learning how that game works, or Hearthstone, but they really do seem to have brought something of their own to make that really work. The weird thing is that they do actually. Sure, no, I mean, well, I think that's what EA Originals is supposed to do. But no, I think that's a fair point that, probably at the AAA you are not going to see the sort of thing that we might have seen previously, in which, like, games that defy classification work. I think that is fair. Let me just accept the call.
A client who needs to get a certain shot. Problem is, the shard's in the skull of a courier who's currently stretched out on a crematorium slab. Details are attached.
Well, that's an interesting case, right? Because so many, like, you see a game like that come out, and then what happens is that you see the margins on that just get spread so thin within sometimes even weeks at this point, because everybody's jumping in on the. Everybody's just jumping in on yeah, exactly. And I just kind of wonder, like, the thing that I wonder about here is, like, if the goal is to have a game studio, right? If that is like to be in the games business, in theory, there is actually probably a role for people being able to create imitative works as efficiently as possible, right? So the auto battler comes out and you're able to make team fight tactics before team fight tactics. Or Vampire Survivors comes out and you're able to make your version of that faster and better than everybody else. And that's really how you can compete on price, right? You can charge a lower price than everybody else because of your efficiency, and you capture the market that way. And if that is to you fulfilling your dream, I'm really not in a position, even if somebody makes a purely imitative game, I am in no position to tell people what their priorities should be. Like some of the stuff I spend my time on, I know people would probably have, if not a problem with, would not think well on how much time I spend on that. And, I just have to say, I'm sure I could sit them down with my reasons. I just don't think they would listen. And to a certain extent, I just need to say, well, it is my life. It is ultimately my choice in terms of how I spend my time. And so, I guess to a certain extent is like, well, how much do I owe this person an explanation for my individual choices? So, similarly, I don't want to turn around and say that, somebody's discovered that they can run a very tight ship, and that they're able to implement seemingly any genre of game, and that effectively what they are good at is cloning. I'm sure there is a role for that in the market. But it strikes me that is very different from what most motivations are. And I do agree with you, Lord Gloom. Like, I do want to be kind of careful because I realize I sound like a total grump on these sorts of topics. There is a numbers thing behind it. Like, the majority of stuff on YouTube is just nonsense, right? And yet, that's not really the point. We do have a lot of very good quality. So, I think this could just be said about just about anything, right? If you want to knock on science fiction, there is no shortage of, books that would have actually been better had the pages just remained blank, right? And you can point to that and you can say that science fiction is just a wasteland of, of terrible writing. And likewise, you can go to the literature section and you can find just a bunch of self-indulgent garbage, that just for one reason or another, it was put out into the world. Likewise, you can find truly wonderful books in both of those sections, ones that will stay with you forever. And so, to a certain extent, the nonsense is the price we pay for having more access to the tools of production. I think, by and large, that is a good thing, right? I think we get the better end of that in most cases. But I will say, right, for the people who are going out of their way to make indie games, for the people who are going out of their way to sort of say that they're following this dream, if you are just going to make another version of Vampire Survivors, like, is this the dream, to implement somebody else's game? And it may be that there is a skill thing. I do actually have a specific idea in terms of a role where imitation does have a role to play, particularly if AI were to be more widely adopted for certain art and design roles. And I've wanted to write an article on that for a while, except I just find it difficult to put in a more concise form. But there is another half to this, and it's a more negative one, which I hate kind of saying, but I do sort of feel that there has been a tendency in this direction for a while. And at the risk of kind of depressing everyone, I do sort of think the frontier of creative possibilities has been contracting for a while. And I think it's something that has actually been happening for a few decades. There's two books about movies that I remember reading when I was just kind of getting into movies that I really enjoyed. One was Easy Riders and Raging Bulls, and the other one was called Down and Dirty Pictures. They're both by Peter Biskind. And Easy Riders, Raging Bulls is sort of about this period where Hollywood was stagnating. That's the time that they were making like Paint Your Wagon and stuff like that. People were basically just not going to the movies that much. And yet you have a bunch of filmmakers who are kind of... some of them are just trying to get out of going to Vietnam. And so, they roll in a university and you get these, people who are, basically draft dodgers. And they enroll in a film program because that seems like an easy, why wouldn't you do that in college, especially if you're there to avoid going to Vietnam? And yet you get these, very significant countercultural figures making films that people want to see, right? So this would be The Easy Rider. This would be like Apocalypse Now. This would be, John Cassavetes movies. There's tons of examples that you can get from that. Really, really creative time. One of the figures during that was George Lucas. In fact, I believe he was supposed to be the original director of Apocalypse Now, and he wanted to do more of a documentary style. I think most people are familiar with, THX 1138 or Electronic Labyrinth. But he's made no secret of this. He was really inspired by a Canadian filmmaker working for the National Film Board called Arthur Lipsett. And if you've not seen some of Arthur Lipsett's shorts, I really, really like them. I think Very Nice, and 2187 are two good examples. And if you look at Lipsett's work, and you especially look at Electronic Labyrinth, the student film, Arthur Lipsett, I can actually send you his National Film Board page. Just give me 1 second here. These are very experimental and weird, right? So just keep in mind, 2187 is probably my preferred one, but it did come after Very Nice. But yeah, like Lucas not only has made no secret about his inspiration and effort to sort of imitate Lipset. You need only look at Electronic Labyrinth and see clearly, what the where his influences were. In fact, I believe Kubrick tried to hire him for the trailer for Doctor Strangelove. And again, that didn't turn out. But if you take a look at the trailer for Doctor Strangelove or even A Clockwork Orange, again, there's Lipset's fingerprints all over that. Unfortunately, he didn't really have a good end, which is a shame. He very clearly had some mental problems. And I think in some cases didn't necessarily have that easy of a time at the National Film Board. Like, I think at the time there was this feeling like there was really only one, there could only be one Norman McLaren, who is this really gifted animator, also did very experimental work. But that you couldn't have too much of the arty stuff. Which again is a shame because Lipset definitely was a very unique talent. But in any case, I've sort of gotten off of the topic. But then you have Lucas transitioning from that. I think there was actually the challenge that it might have even been Marsha Lucas that put it to him about making a more emotional as opposed to cerebral film, and I think he did American Graffiti, and then eventually did Star Wars, and then Spielberg does Jaws. And while the box office was reinvigorated by these by these more countercultural figures, ultimately that ushered in sort of the era of the summer blockbuster. And by the time you get to the 80s, there's definitely a much heavier control in terms of, in terms of the studio system. Not implying in the least that there were not good movies made in the 80s, right? Terminator was made in the 80s. But definitely that is it's a very different sort of thing than what you see in that era that Peter Biskind is covering in terms of Easy Riders and Raging Bulls. So Down and Dirty Pictures is kind of interesting because that deals with the 90s and 2000s, in which not only do you have a similar resurgence where maybe there's a bit of a flagging box office and this arrival of new talent. And of course, this is particularly what Miramax did so well. Their whole deal basically was sort of trawl the indie film scene, find some successful ones, stuff that maybe could win an Oscar or had some sort of award to it already, buy that up, really aggressively promote with the Academy, and then essentially do the wide release and ride the box office success from the awards. And that particular group seemed to be very self-conscious that they were sort of taking up the mantle of the 1970s. Now, again, I am largely taking Biskind's narrative here. So if you were to talk to some of these figures, they may have a different perspective in terms of what they were doing. But it is sort of fair to say, right? And, this is one thing. I am not always a big Quentin Tarantino fan, because one thing that does bother me a little bit is that he's got two sets of references that he makes. There is the set of references that he makes that show him to be, very knowledgeable about film and very hip and whatnot. And then there are the actual influences of the film. So you've got Reservoir Dogs, which kind of established his career. That is basically The Killing, right? So there'll be plenty of movie references that he makes, but at no point does he ever really make an overt reference to The Killing, because The Killing doesn't give you your reputation. More importantly, The Killing might show that Reservoir Dogs maybe wasn't as path-breaking as it was. I'm not entirely sure the addition of the violence and the swearing really made The Killing any better. And again, I'm biased, right? Because I love Kubrick. But I don't know, I really do feel that The Killing, particularly for its time, is probably a much more radical departure from what you can sort of expect a film to be than Reservoir Dogs. On the other hand, right, obviously people paid attention to Reservoir Dogs, so I can't be too unkind to it either. But what you have here is you have this very self-aware kind of filmmaking. And, you know, obviously this relates sort of to certain ideas in terms of postmodernism and so on and so forth. But it is ultimately very self-referential. And particularly not, it doesn't even have to be that group of filmmakers, but I think especially what came after it, right? Once people sort of started, think of the people who maxed out their credit cards, but then didn't get a deal with Miramax. You know, and I've worked on some of these movies. You know, people who don't actually have anything to say other than all the movies that they've watched. And I think basically since that time, so if that's the 90s, right, we've got about 3 decades of that now. And there is a side of me that is wondering if there is just something that has sort of collectively happened to the imagination that has ultimately caused us to think smaller than we should, right? Because again, if it's all adaptations, if it's all looking for IP, if it's all, you know, looking for those safe choices, I understand there are commercial reasons for needing to do that. You know, I think it's very sensible that if you're going to do a AAA action game, that, you know, setting it in the Marvel universe, if there is an established demand for that, will probably allow you to push the envelope in terms of graphical fidelity and so on and so forth. I hope that the money that you earn making that might allow you to perhaps make something like a Dead Space. But, you know, like I can sort of understand the dance that you need to do there. But again, you know, it has arguably never been easier to express yourself in any sort of form. And yet, you know, a lot of this stuff that sometimes comes out is another form of fan fiction when you really think about it. And again, I don't mean to knock fan fiction too much. If it's something that makes you happy, fine. But how do we go from like an Easy Rider, you know, or a Doctor Strangelove or what have you, to a you know, an environment where so much of what we have to say is sort of reheating the leftovers from a few decades ago. And again, I want to be really clear on this. This is in no way trying to suggest that everything is terrible and there are no good movies that get made. So I finally got to see Squid Game. I really enjoyed Squid Game, right? You know, I got to see, you know, there's lots of stuff that I enjoy watching. I do have a little bit of a taste for some more classic stuff. But I think the big important one for me is, again, coming back to that idea of if we weren't this focused on this sort of stuff, in particular, if there wasn't this idea that, you know, I need to make something commercially appealing as an independent game maker. And again, commercial appeal is not the worst thing that you can go for. You know, at the very least, you are sort of saying that I want to give the customer something that they'll enjoy. And I think there's something admirable about that. But this idea of playing it safe when you have a means of making your creation at a very low cost, and so as a result, very low risk, it just sort of seems to be the wrong way of thinking about that. And again, there is that side of me that wonders, you know, is there sort of this missing generation of work? Because now, essentially for 30 years, so much of what we have been doing is sort of self-referential that we've sort of lost the capacity to sort of look at what's you know, what's going on around, you know, how we can make something a bit more original. You wonder how much of this is either games or TVs and movies. People end up self-sabotaging, stretch themselves thinking, yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? This is why for a really long time, I know I've been sitting on the messages for a bit, so I'll make a little bit of progress after this. Yeah, I'm actually really not fond of the idea of an incomplete story for a sequel. Because, like, if you think of it, like, so here's an example, right? I don't want to be too mean to the idea of established IP. So, you've got Alien is a very nice movie, but Alien didn't come out of a vacuum. Alien came from Dan O'Bannon working on a movie called Dark Star, which is a delight if you have not seen it. It's one of I think it was actually John Carpenter's student film. But anyways, it's a good one if you haven't seen it. It's got a fun ending, I think. Actually, a fun ending that comes completely out of a short story. I think it might be a Ray Bradbury short story now that I think of it. But I definitely it is a short story that they're taking up. But yeah, so O'Bannon takes this sequence basically with a beach ball and makes it more of a horror film. And Cameron follows up with Aliens and essentially kind of makes Starship Troopers in Aliens. And to a certain extent sort of makes it his own. But I mean, in this case, it is sort of working with an existing franchise. But to its credit, right, it expanded it. Alien is a self-contained film. Aliens is a self-contained film. They didn't feel the need to have, the mother alien's like fist, burst out of the monitor to show that, she's back. They can be standalone films. And, especially there's actually apparently a problem with trying to sell fantasy books now because they do tend to come as part of a series. And apparently some people are reluctant to buy the first part of a series because they're worried that the author won't finish it. And of course, the author doesn't finish it because people didn't buy the first one. Or the publisher doesn't publish it because the first one didn't meet with success. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that regard. But I don't know, like, I used to try and follow Jonathan Blow's stream, and like, there's no denying the guy's talent for gaming. One thing that kind of turned me off the stream was that whenever the topic of the annoying car guy would come up, he would always come off as extremely defensive, and like he kind of tried to present this idea that he would be willing to accept legitimate criticism of Musk. And yet it was like I remember for a really long time, the only thing he would really say is like, "Are you kidding me?" When people would raise the issue. And I'm sort of like, I am no lover of the annoying car guy. It's why I call him the annoying car guy. I don't think every criticism has equal merit. And I think especially for someone like Blow clearly finds Musk an inspiring figure. And I think that the unfair criticism can definitely lead one to be a bit defensive on the topic, because there's only so many times, it's like if somebody finds out, you're a vegetarian, there's always going to be that one person who just doesn't shut up about it, and particularly talks about how vegetarians never shut up about being vegetarians, despite the fact they are the only one talking about it. I used to be one of those people, I think, if I'm completely honest. But, I can have sympathy for his position because he talks about doing big and hard things. And I actually think that there is something good about that mentality. I read a book by Arthur C. Clarke called How the World Was Won, O-N-E. And it is a nonfiction book. It's about telecommunications. And it starts with the story of the laying of the first undersea cable. And I think they failed like 3 times, losing just preposterous amounts of money, and then ultimately succeeded. But, you can sort of imagine how today, one company tries to do it and goes bust, and then everybody's going to say, oh, you can't do it. This company already tried and it's not going to work. And if you try to get the government to do that and it fails the first time, there's going to be some sort of committee that goes together, and the government is going to be pilloried for doing what was obviously a reckless use of taxpayer funds. But the Victorians did it, right? That's what having cocaine as medicine does to you, I suppose. In fact, if you've heard the name Lord Kelvin, it is specifically the laying of the undersea cable that basically turned William Thompson into Lord Kelvin. And then he got his, like, the Lala Rook and just did science on the high seas for the rest of his life with the fortune that he made from that. So, but, you know, there is something to be said for thinking big. And, you know, honestly, if the annoying car guy makes you think big, fair enough, right? It doesn't make him right on everything. In fact, I think he's behaving in a very foolish way for somebody who clearly does have some accomplishments. You know, I know people don't like it when people say that, but, you know, I think credit where credit is due. Otherwise, you just live in sort of a fantasy world. But the thing is, you don't even need to say, you know, oh, my buddy Elon has inspired me to do this. You can find your inspiration through lots of different places. But again, and I remember the clearest way that I felt like I really wanted to rant about this stuff was when I was in a writers group meeting. And one of the people, you know, I sort of talked about how I thought it was interesting. There was this project, Neil Stevenson was part of it, called the Hieroglyph Project, which was a reaction to basically an engineer telling a bunch of science fiction authors present, you know, you guys are the ones who've been asleep at the switch. You know, it's just dystopias all the way down. You know, where's the inspiring stories that led us to create these great things, right? Because if you think of so many Apple's products, right, they're basically pulled straight out of the Jetsons and Star Trek. And for the longest time, we've had cyberpunk dystopias that, you know, are talking about how scared everybody is by, you know, globalization and wealth inequality. And, you know, that's not to say that that is not an appropriate topic. I mean, it's worth remembering William Gibson sort of thought he was following in the footsteps of like a William S. Burroughs. He wasn't necessarily, you know, making something that would be turned into role-playing games or something like that. But, you know, it was interesting to see a bunch of science fiction authors take that challenge and try to make something a bit more constructive. And I sort of said there's something interesting in that. And I wish more people would feel encouraged to do that. And, you know, there's always going to be someone who says this, but it really, really bugged me at the time I read it. And somebody's like, well, you know, the authors are just, you know, reacting to the time that they find themselves in. And I'm like, first of all, I just really personally, I find that so frustrating to hear, because like I don't think I've had it as easy as some people might think. But I've gotten pretty, you know, I was born in North America, specifically in Canada. I did not have, you know, parents didn't pay for school, right? I did have to earn my way through school, but I did it. You know, I had the opportunity. I had a public schooling to bring myself to that point. I had public libraries to follow my interests because I didn't immediately go into university. I did actually work in film for a little while before doing that. You know, there is, depending on your perspective, you know, and anybody who has the capability of making a video game or the leisure time to write a fiction enjoys an absolutely unthinkable standard of living. You know, both in a historical, but even today in the globe, like just a truly, I'd say borderline opulent style. And again, that is absolutely not denying that a lot of people have it very hard, even in North America. But I do tend to find that usually the people who are saying that line of, you know, they're just you know, reacting to their, you know, their benighted times, are not the people who really have a legitimate claim to that kind of hardship. Keeping in mind that this was a work writers group, so effectively the people I was talking to were people who are sort of in my same strata. But even if we leave that aside, right, because I realize that can descend into sort of like the pain or poverty Olympics or something like that. My simplest reaction to that is, what the hell are creators for if all they're going to do is, tell us how bad we've got it, right? If that's all that they can do, if they're just sort of saying what we can already see, like, why do I need to read your short story? Why do I need to play your game? Because there is a difference between what is effectively a short story temper tantrum. Oh, woe is me, nobody bought my novel. Now it's going to be a story about, being oppressed by morons or something like that. And, a 1984, right, which is sort of the fiction version of politics in the English language, or a Gulliver's Travels, which, is designed to vex the world rather than divert it. These seem to be people who have something of sort of substance to say, and it's not necessarily a pleasant world that they are portraying, but the way that their times are being reflected are not just this sort of like, I'm mad this thing happened to me, and so here we go. And to be completely honest with you, the reason why there's so many dystopias is because, like, the Hunger Games did well, right? It's not that it's a reflection of the time. It's a reflection of the fact that they are following what they think, the market wants. And, I'd like to think that the market still has a place for original expressions. Anyway, search and recover. Shard with demon program. La Caterina crematorium, intersection of Falrope and Plover Street. I'd like you to commit a minor transgression against God and his people, disturbing the dead from their eternal rest. Deceased name is Jim Greyer. He smuggled unstable shards by slotting them inside his head. Sadly, during his last transit, things went sideways. The demon got out of its cage and barbecued his brain. Jim Greyer ended up in La Caterina Funeral Home along with my client's shard. Go to La Caterina, find Greyer's body, and get that shard before it's burnt to cinders. FYI, the crematorium's cozy with the Valentinos. That's where they get rid of their bodies. One wrong move, and you'll end up there too. There is something from Orwell's Why I Write that I wanted to share on this as well, but I didn't want this to turn into just pure chatting, so I wanted to at least finish the thought, because I tried to mention it a couple of times and the dialogue sort of got in the way.
Yes?
Got in the way.
Can I help you?
How's it going? Hey, you got any special offers?
Depends. You want to cremate somebody? Or make a purchase for yourself?
Don't you think it's a little too soon for me?
Always better to be insured. If you pay now, you can get a 50% discount with our latest cremation salvation package.
Come on now, that's just too good to be true.
But it is true. The details are in our complimentary information booklet.
I'm a member of the Greyer family. I'd like to see the body.
I'm afraid that won't be possible. Access to the morgue is employee restricted.
Thank you, Lord Gloom. Okay, so this isn't going to get me anywhere. So I got to do something to...
In hard times, he was stoic. Alberto was an exceptional man. Exceptional.
How rude!
Target is not electrically powered.
Today, we say our goodbyes. But we say them lightly, for we know we will meet again. So, Lord.
Listening's a skill, you know.
Hey, lady. Should probably work on the should probably work on the cameras. Okay, E9 FFBD. Okay, those are all traps. I don't know if there's a way to get the E9FF. Oh, yeah, there's one. Okay. You know what? I don't get the BD here, though. I'm gonna close. See if I can try again. Uh, 1C7A55. Oh, I think I messed up. So I've got the 7A, but I don't have the E9. Oh, I should have done it at the top. All right. That's what I get for taking too long. So, I would have thought there's some kind of camera. Probably could have saved myself a lot of trouble by just popping out back here, but that's a good way for us to get out of the place when the time comes. Again, ideally I'll find cameras before I go too far inside. Okay. Nope.
You're lucky to even be alive.
Okay, so that's the target. So what would be a good idea would be for me to try and kill whatever cameras in this room. There we go. Might as well clear out the threat just in case. I can presumably just head out the back here. And yeah, on the previous topic, Lord Gloom, if you do check out the Arthur Lipsett films and enjoy them, even if you don't care for them, I'd love to know what you think. I think you can also see them on YouTube. The only thing is I know some CBC stuff is region locked to Canada. I'm sure there's ways of doing like proxies and stuff like that to to get around it, but I figure
You're an angel sent from heaven. The demon-possessed shard's on its way to the client, just like your money's on its way to you. Closing the contract.
anyways, yeah, I'd be interested in knowing what you think of it when you get around to it. But yeah, the YouTube probably has viewable copies. I just figured the NFB site is, well, I mean, they own it, first of all. And I figure it's probably not going to have the same region troubles. Streets have their eye on you, V. I have new clients and contracts for you. Keep up the good work. I think I could probably evade the police here. This might be a worry if he turns right. How did you know? Oh, careful, careful, careful. No, alright.
Suspect's vehicle has been located. Details have been sent.
We'll send him on a merry chase then.
Suspect has disappeared. All units on site, continue searching the area.
Hey, car thievery.
All units in the area, order has been restored. All units instructed to return to patrol.
Well, that's a shame. The car theft went away. So when I was loading this up, I didn't know, or I noticed there was a new announcement. So apparently there is the soundtrack's been arranged into some piano sheet music. It's a little above my level, but it's something I'd kind of like to work up to. But if you like the soundtrack and you have a piano or some other form of keyboard and the either skills or patience to realize it, that is a free PDF available on the Cyberpunk site.
a man who must meet justice. This is a personal matter. I'll pay extra. More info attached. I'm counting on you, V.
Okay. Gun for Hire. Karubo Berrii dive bar on the corner of Congress and Pigeon Street. There's a time for forgiveness and a time for revenge. There's a time for turning the other cheek and a time for crushing your enemies like the roaches they are. In the words of the prophet Jeremiah, cursed is he who keeps their sword from bloodshed. The man you are to eliminate is Karubo Berrii. He's an old-timer, but don't let appearances fool you. He used to be a solo. He killed my friends, people who were like brothers and sisters to me. When all hell broke loose in Night City, he fled to the East Coast. Now he's back, probably thinking everyone forgot about him. But not me. Karubo runs a filthy dive that serves as a Valentino's hideout. Go there and show him that nobody can avoid the hand of justice. And try not to make a scene, okay? Be professional. No unnecessary attention. While I'm doing this, I'm going to see if I can find why I write. Yeah, so this is worth reading at length. Now, I'm not using the I do have a collected Orwell in the apartment. I just don't really have the light for it right now, so I'm going to rely on the internet. But I thought that was sort of I thought this was an interesting one. I like the way Orwell breaks down motivations for writing. I'm going to read the paragraph before he gets to the motivations. I give all this background information because I do not think one can assess a writer's motives without knowing something of his early development. His subject matter will be determined by the age he lives in. At least this is true in tumultuous revolutionary ages like our own. But before he ever begins to write, he will have acquired an emotional attitude from which he will never completely escape. It is his job, no doubt, to discipline his temperament and avoid getting stuck at some immature stage in some perverse mood. But if he escapes from his early influences altogether, he will have killed his impulse to write. Putting aside the need to earn a living, I think there are 4 great motives for writing, at any rate writing prose. They exist in different degrees in every writer, and in any one writer, the proportions will vary from time to time, according to the atmosphere in which he is living. They are, 1, sheer egoism. Tiberiosity, thank you very much for the raid. Sheer egoism, the desire to seem clever, to be talked about, to be remembered after death, to get your own back on the grown-ups who snubbed you in childhood, etc., etc. It is humbug to pretend that this is not a motive, and a strong one. Writers share this characteristic with scientists, artists, politicians, lawyers, soldiers, successful businessmen, in short, with the whole top crust of humanity. The great mass of human beings are not acutely selfish. After the age of about 30, they almost abandon the sense of being individuals at all and live chiefly for others, or are simply smothered under drudgery. There is also the minority of gifted, willful people who are determined to live their own lives to the end, and writers belong in this class. Serious writers, I should say, are on the whole more vain and self-centered than journalists, though less interested in money. 2. Aesthetic enthusiasm. Perception of beauty in the external world, or, on the other hand, in words and their right arrangement. Pleasure in the impact of one sound on another, in the firmness of good prose or the rhythm of a good story. Desire to share an experience which one feels is valuable and ought not to be missed. The aesthetic motive is very feeble in a lot of writers, but even a pamphleteer or a writer of textbooks will have pet words and phrases which appeal to him for non-utilitarian reasons. Or he may feel strongly about typography, width of margins, etc. Above the level of a railway guide, no book is quite free from aesthetic considerations. 3. Historical impulse, desire to see things as they are, to find out true facts, and to store them up for the use of posterity. And 4. Political purpose, using the word political in the widest possible sense, a desire to push the world in a certain direction, to alter other people's idea of the kind of society and what they should strive after. Once again, no book is genuinely free from political bias. The opinion that art should have nothing to do with politics is itself a political attitude. There's more in there, but I just kind of wanted to deal with the four motives. And I actually really like the fact that he starts with sheer egoism, and more importantly says it is humbug to pretend that this is not a major motivator for people, right? Like, there are almost certainly people who are creating games to just show someone, I told you so. And of course they want it to be as successful as possible so they can tell that naysayer, I told you so. I'm not even going to say bad work has been made with that motivation. There have been bad things made with that motivation, but there's probably also been some really great stuff that's been made, and then just for the interviews they tidy it up later. Were you playing Final Fantasy XIV today, Tiberiosity? I hope you are well, and thank you for bringing your people over. This will probably be the last mission for tonight, but we can... Oh, you know what? I think I remember this one. This takes a little effort. Yep.
Hey, Carupo! Know this one?
Ecclesiastes 9, for all this I laid to my heart, even to explore all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God, whether it is love or hatred. Man doesn't know all is before them. All things come alike to all. There is one event to the righteous and to the wicked, to the good, to the clean, to the unclean, to him who sacrifices and to him who doesn't sacrifice. As is the good, so is the sinner, he who takes an oath as he who fears an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, and that there is one event to all. Yes, also the heart of the sons of men is full of evil, and madness is in their heart while they live, and after that they go to the dead. For him who is joined with all the living there is hope, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead don't know anything, neither do they have any more reward, for their memory is forgotten. Also their love, their hatred, and their envy has perished long ago. Neither do they any longer have a portion forever in anything that is under the sun. So I think I can get away with just grabbing this. Yeah. Ooh. Okay. I did cause an alert, but I think we can wait it out. Yeah. This is not an easy one to clean out. Nolan and Javi. Yo, can you talk? Sorta, with my kids watching a movie. Same one for the 7th fucking time. Can't take it anymore. Anyway, what's up? About my kids, actually. About Martha. Shit, how's she doing? Not good. Stopped answering the holo in my messages. Apparently she's in a coma. Jesus fucking Christ. Because that dickwipe Gustavo. Told her she should stop hanging out with him, but she didn't listen. So what now? Now we fucking up. Willing to pay. Shit, bro, you know I'd love to. It's still too hot after what happened in Vista. NCPD put a bounty on my head. To get a new faceplate or DNA masking. Can't even leave the house. I'm sorry, Choom. It's cool. Better ask Padre. I'm sure he knows someone. Okay? Sure. Yeah. Take care. Okay. So we're in a better spot than we were before, but I do need to be careful with... I think if I mess with his TV, this guy's gonna... Yeah. So I don't want Barry Eye to notice. Jose Luis and Pilar, sup? Got some work that he's doing. You in? Dunno. How much you paying? Whatever you want. You win the lottery or something? I wish. Loaded client, not skimping on cash or gear, but he wants it done quiet. Sounds too good to be true. Something's off about this. Nothing's off. Laredo vouches for him. So, you in or not? Because I got others. I'm in. Fuck it. Preem. Tell the rest when we meet. Later. Okay. That's inconvenient, but I haven't been spotted yet. Oh. Okay. I'm just gonna have to do this quick. So he's probably gonna turn around any minute now.
Grandpa's gonna find you, cabron.
Are you kidding me? I'm going reloading that one. I was pretty sure I hit the F, but then again, the sign didn't come up, so... what have we got here? Oh, wow. Yes, this makes it more awkward, but it doesn't seem to count as raising the alarm, which surprises me a little bit. Okay. There's definitely an order I need to do this. We're going to be on to the target soon, but I think I'm just going to hide out. Oh. This could go bad. I had the option of a... Nuts. I got a system collapse if I need it. It's the fact that there's two of them there that's the problem. Okay, not quite how I was planning on it going, but you know what? It worked. All right, outstanding payments. Pascual until Friday. Ramiro paid up. Inez calculated interest. Wenslazo paid up. Nuria until Friday. Silvestre calculated interest. Okay, let's grab what we can. Transport has been arranged. So I might as well make a bit of money. I don't really have a plan after this. Whatever. 2 7As, BD. Nope. Poor showing, but... So yeah, the body being identified was unfortunate, but we managed... Oh, it's an easier way in here. I'll know that for next time. Well, I think I said that last time I found it too, so... We'll move the body out, but I want to get everything I can. Drink menu, Diente Dorado, Mezcal Bourbon, Lime, Dark Chocolate, Gold Flakes, Santa Cecilia, Tequila, Matcha, Saramoyo Cream, Almond Milk, Flor de Muertos, Black Spiced Rum, Triple Sec, Taurine, Orange Blossom Water, Marigold Petals, Compa de Haywood, Tequila Reposado, Black Spiced Rum, Lime, Seeded Jalapeno, and Soy Sauce, and Quinceanera, Amaretto Triple Sec, Rose Water, and Lime. It's the only way I play Lord Gloom. Every level here exists to be completely looted. E-confession, 432 KB. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. A confession should begin with me listing sins, but I cannot. I know I have murdered, but I don't know how many. I know I have tortured, but I don't remember who or why. I know I have raped, but all of the faces blend together. My memory fails me because I abuse psychostims for focus, reflexes, and to dull the pain. The last 15 years of my life are like a corrupted video file. All I can recall are pieces, the kind that keep me up at night. I'm back in Night City now. I don't know why or what I'm looking for. Maybe atonement, maybe death. Death, after all, I came. You're back? Fuck, Choom. Is it true that there's what they're saying on the streets? You're back in Night City? We ought to remind this town who we are again, man. Night City's more fucked up than it used to be. Hit me up, Royce. Nice to have you back. Heard you back in NC. You thought I wouldn't find out or that I'd just forget. If it's either of those two, you're wrong. Hope you're covered by trauma team. Who knows when you might have an accident. Okay, I would love to loot this thing, but let's just move on.
Don't waste your money on counseling. Only Mr. Stark can save your marriage.
I feel like I don't need to be like carrying the gun.
Thanks to you, I'll be the one taking Garubo on his journey from our earthly plane, closing the gate. Praise be to thee, V.
Okay, now I'm ready to jack in. We might do a round of the Roach Racer just to finish off the night. I don't know if anybody had any thoughts on whatever we talked about. Now's the time to get them in. I think the thing about this is I kind of know that I've gotten past these areas before, so it sort of feels like just going through the motions. But the thing is, if I don't learn the lessons from these, then I'm just going to get clobbered and like 1-5 again. Actually, one example I'll give to the previous topic that may be of interest to you, Lord Gloom. I don't know if you watched the Fallout series. I think that's on Prime. I thought there was a really interesting point that Jonathan Nolan made. So far as I can tell, Jonathan Nolan is or at least was a short story writer. So I think his brother's movie Memento was based off of a short story that he had written, and I know they have collaborated on projects before, but he is sort of a producer and writer in his own right. I think he worked on the Westworld series for HBO. But you'd sort of say, what was it? It was, oh damn, I didn't even see those there. I'm trying to remember. He was trying to make a point of originality, and like I remember my original reaction to I think it was the Hollywood Reporter or something, but like my original reaction is like, are you serious? Like, you're just coming off of the adaptation of the Michael Crichton movie, or movies rather, because there was, I think, Future World was the sequel as well, and now you're adapting a video game series. Like, it's a bit rich to be talking about original ideas, surely. But the thing is, I really do, where I can, try to read more than just the headlines, because I know I've certainly had cases where I feel that a less controversial point than I was making is what people are, reacting to based on a headline or whatever. And he actually made a really interesting point about the Fallout series. I don't know if this bears out in the actual series itself, but the case that he made was that Fallout was actually a really promising idea for a series, because it was a game world, and it was specifically a game world in which people would sort of almost tell their own stories to a certain extent. Now, obviously, there's a main storyline for Fallout, and it's not that you have complete freedom. But I think it's also fair to say, right, like most Bethesda games probably have more quests than the player might reasonably be expected to experience in any given single playthrough, unless you're one of those players who absolutely must do everything. I sometimes feel like one of them. But I thought this was interesting, right? There seems to actually be some kind of opportunity there, almost, in that this adaptation sort of satisfies the current need to have existing IP to justify a budget, while still providing enough freedom to be able to tell original stories. Now, again, the heavy part of that is the tell the original stories part. It's easier said than done. And I mean, again, just so I don't sound like a certain type of internet commentator, like, I would definitely be much more willing to bet on Jonathan Nolan's ability to deliver an original story in the Fallout setting than mine, right? I am not a professional. Well, I mean, I'm a professional writer in the sense that I do a lot of writing for work, but probably not the type of writing most people think about. I kind of wanted to get that apple, but I don't think it's worth the risk. So that did kind of catch my attention, because it is a side of video game adaptations that I haven't really thought of. I think especially too because there are a lot of games which really do feel like the creator really wanted to work in Hollywood but couldn't break in. And they actually do count for some of my favorite moments in games. So I remember Assassin's Creed, Assassin's Creed Revelations. Anyways, there's this whole sequence with like a burning ship, and like it is like it's very hard to say I am playing the game at that point, right? I may be occasionally pushing a button to watch really incredible things happen, but my God, was that engaging, right? I think it's worth saying when I am completely captivated by something on the screen, even if, damn it, even if there's the whole, oh, it has QuickTime events, it's bad then, which I don't think is a helpful way of thinking. But something like that doesn't really play to the strength of interactivity in video games. Whereas, something like Cultist Simulator, much smaller budget. You don't get to see, hello, Nearly Logical. How you doing? You don't see the Mantis as anything other than an image on the desk. You see very few of the things described in the game. But the fact that you're sort of assembling the cards and making sense of things the same way that your character is making sense of the occult world, I feel leverages the interactivity of games in a way that is often missed by others. Nope, mine now. Gonna get out or? Nope. Okay, well, that's fine. You started playing this game again? How are you enjoying it? Are you on to the Phantom Liberty stuff, or were you gonna play the main game? Yeah, I'm pretty sure the combat music's for this person who's just chilling in the passenger seat. I wonder if I just run into a wall, if that'll solve my problem. In the main game, you're enjoying it. You had to make peace with the parts that turned you off the first time. What was the stuff that turned you off? I can't remember. I know you've said it before. I apologize. Especially given that I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, I am definitely not thinking clearly. Oh no, the trees, my frames. Oh, okay. Looks like we gave him the slip somehow. Some assembly required.
Not gonna lie, V. You got a gift. My man will take care of the rest. Check the drop points for reward.
Okay.
Don't spend it all on XPDs and glitter.
I did say that was going to be the last thing, but let's see if we can get ourselves a car. There are a couple things. You had cognitive dissonance with the first-person perspective with such a highly realized character. Interesting. You know, I always find it funny. Like I don't ever like. Well, okay. There are some things I do find a little silly, and like it's kind of hard not to give people a little grief over. But I'm always kind of interested to find what some deal breakers are for some people in games, because I remember someone said that like they were not. This was actually off of one of the trailers, and like they ceased to be interested in the game because they saw numbers over the heads of enemies when they shot them. And I was like, man, I didn't even notice the numbers over the head. But like obviously, if that's something that you notice and you're bugged by, that's gonna be a problem. I know sometimes this stuff, I get the feeling we've sort of been taught to be annoyed by it, right? That there's, a YouTuber who says they don't like that, or, some game designer says it's bad game design. Man, I really wish I knew what caused that car to go flying. But like on the other hand, I definitely notice when the numbers go up. I think the way I tried to articulate it to the person at the time is like, obviously it's not my job to sell Cyberpunk to them, but I said is like, I imagine probably what some of this is coming from is the fact that at least to them they're making an RPG. And, if you saw that in something like The Witcher, which I know he'd played and I still haven't, I suspect probably this, to them, this is a continuation of it. It's not a first-person shooter like, like Wolfenstein or something. But I don't know, right? Like, unless you actually have an interview with the developers and what their specific plans are.
All units in the area, we have an urgent situation in Westbrook.
Roger, dispatch. Don't they got corp security there? Fine. On our way.
I'll see if I can just lay low for a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of value in dismissing the concern, but it's definitely interesting to me, at least, to see what some of the deal breakers can sometimes be for people, because they're very often things that I don't even think about or notice. Okay, excuse me. $39,500, $4,500. I think 4,500 is the most expensive. Sport R7, the chiaroscuro. Some folks always think they know the secret to happiness. Hate to break it to ya, but I'm one of them. See, when I'm cruising along in my Quadra Sport R7, I feel totally at peace, like I'm connected to a higher power. I'm talking about a 480 horsepower engine on steroids kind of power. If you've tangoed with the Quadra Turbo R VTEC and liked it, then the Sport R7 won't disappoint. I guarantee it'll take you places you've never dreamed of. So what you waiting for? Start counting that scratch. Okay. So now what I got to do is find the least expensive. I've got 158 to blow, so I should be able to get like one or two So 79, 52... 45. Yeah, so 45 and 52 would be the first two. Galena Gecko. Thornton Galena Gecko is up for grabs. If you're a nothing beats the original type of person, either stop reading or get a fucking brain. Your standard Galena is decent, sure, but Nomad Techs breathe new life into this ride. I didn't think possible. Interior is rough around the edges, no cup holder, entertainment system, heated seats, etc., but it kicks like a shot of Zenzon, and its suspension is damn near indestructible. Handles great off the road and can get clear any dune or incline, making this Galena great for shaking tails. If all else fails, the mountain lead spitter should convince them otherwise. If you want a reliable partner for the road ahead, you've just found it. All right, so 56 is the highest here. Let me just double check. $56, $57. Nope, 52. But we can't afford the 56. Type 66 Generoli. Just hear how nasty this beast roars and how sexy it purrs. The previous owner apparently had a thing for SoCal and 6th Street by day and a laser-focused obsession with dominating the NC street race scene by night. That is, till he zeroed some corpo crossing the street in the wrong place at the wrong time. The story sounds too apeshit crazy to be true. Just remember this is Night City. Good news is, the rig's still in tip-top shape and primed to perform. Bumper replaced, scrapes, buffed and painted, blood washed off. 10 and 10, I must buy. And the Colby Vulture. When you get behind the wheel of a Colby Vulture, you're not just a driver, you're a hunter. As you prowl the streets, you draw a long shadow that strikes fear into the hearts of your prey. They can hear you coming from a distance, but have no chance for escape. Not from a tuned sport engine and a mounted missile launcher that'll blow any target to smithereens. Leave the carcass for others to pick clean. You hunt for sport. Damn, that come out all poetic and shit, yeah? Be a human, support the arts and buy it now. Should maybe do a quick review here. So we've got 1, 3, 5, 6. Uh, 12, 13 cars. Okay, so we're going to be stealing cars for a while, I think. But that is it for me for tonight. I'm about half an hour over, and I am definitely feeling the consequences for not sleeping. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I know it was a more quiet one, but Lord Gloom in particular, I appreciate you keeping me company. I know Nearly Logical, you just came in, but I need sleep. And Tiberiosity, thank you very much for the raid. It is always appreciated. Let's see who is online. Oh, we've got Katako online. Nope. Oh, we've got Katako. I hate hearing my voice on stream. She's playing Resident Evil 2. I don't know if it's a knife-only run, but I'm going to leave you in her capable hands. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I should have mentioned earlier, so I know there have been some skipped days in terms of the stream. That just happens to be the way that everything's been turning out. So again, last week it was for Cultist Simulator on the Steam channel. I'm sorry if you didn't get a chance to watch it. There will be a YouTube video when everything's ready to go online. And then, of course, there was the game dev meetup the Wednesday before. Now, coming up, I would normally be streaming on Monday, but it is Canada Day, and I do like to take the holidays for myself, particularly now because I have had... let's face it, the fact that I've been starting later has been a function of some very hard work I've been putting into work, and I love work. I am really enjoying doing it. I am staying the extra time because I think it is worth spending the extra time, but there are limits to how often I can do that. So to me, it's an important thing to make sure that I'm taking the days off when I can. So Monday I'm going to take off. I will be back the following Monday, but I will be back for Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday we'll likely be doing a Brace Yourself game or something that was affiliated with Brace Yourself before, and Friday we'll be back to Cyberpunk. So I will see you all then. Have a lovely evening, and please enjoy Katako's stream.